I mean, you could. It sounds like
I did it crazy.
Do you remember that there was a? Well, we can. All right. And we're back.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Life in Bomb City podcast. I'm Aaron Favor.
I'm Dr. Beth Rodriguez.
And we are from Amarillo, Texas. And welcome. It's good to be back.
I know it is good to be back. I know you got to do another session with Lauren, and I'm so glad that she did. But it's good to be back. I like to be on and not missing one.
Yeah, we're kind of trying to grow our base and do some new stuff here. I mean, I know it's not going to end up looking. Honestly, it looks kind of like these look like curtains from like a 1970s recording studio or something. They don't necessarily look like they're things that you would want to put up in a. But on the other hand, that kind of stuff is back in.
It is. Hey. 70s and 80s are coming back.
Yeah, they're
all sorts of stuff
with like a bullet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, one thing I want to address because I know people are going to ask.
Okay.
It is Ash Wednesday.
It is. Yes. So people are going to ask.
And that's. I just want to. I don't know. Just throw it out there. It's kind of like the elephant in the room thing.
Sure.
And shouldn't. It's not a big deal. It's just. And I actually forgot. So I'm so glad that everything happened so fast.
The black stuff is from Ash Wednesday.
Yes, Ash Wednesday. So we're both Catholic.
Right.
So immediately I saw it and I was like, oh, I'm such a bad Catholic. But because I forgot that it's already that date.
That's right. It so is. Yeah.
It is. So just so you know, he doesn't have something just on his head.
That's right. My daughter didn't mark on it or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it is the kind of thing, I have to admit, it is the kind of thing you would expect and catch, coming out of something like that because I mean, you see them marking up their faces on randomly.
Yes.
For absolutely no reason.
No.
But that was not what this is. It was very deliberate and very much there was a reason.
Absolutely.
So, and it's not to look like Simba. I think
there was somebody in the hall. Are you Simba? Yeah, that was. Yeah. No, it is. So there is a reason, and it's a great reason, but that's just, I just wanted to address it just because I know
the beginning of Lent.
Yeah, so I know that people are going to look and be like, what? There's something on his head, but now you know why. So.
Yeah, and you know what? We have lots of listeners that are probably going to understand, I mean, right off the bat, because,
sure.
I mean, Argentina is a largely Catholic. I mean, the Pope is from Argentina.
That's true.
We have other. Argentina right now is a pretty good little solid base of ours.
Yeah.
Although that's not the only place we have listeners.
No.
So, but I mean, Mexico obviously has. We have listeners in Mexico, and we have them in United Kingdom and Canada, and pretty much. Well, I guess austerity and they're in Argentina, and then. Some of the other places we're maybe having some difficult a period of growth with,
sure,
internationally. So, but that's okay. And I think the internet is making now all that stuff kind of a level.
I know, it's crazy.
It really is wild.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so today.
Can I move this up real quick?
Absolutely, wherever you need me to put it. Is that better?
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. I just want to make sure that I'm getting it. We had one episode a couple of months ago where we were sitting in my office and I think we had these were too far back, and so it was picking up my voice on your microphone and your voice on my microphone because we were too far back. So
sure.
It really is like it's an art. There's an art and a science to it.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly.
So today I wanted to talk about, we kind of had brought it up and my husband and I actually had kind of talked about this, but there's some old adages or old sayings that used to we felt like they held true and they were kind of a way to live your life. And I feel like a lot of them seem not to necessarily hold water, which is another saying, not necessarily, I don't know, kind of have the same resilience, the same, importance.
Wisdom, like common wisdom.
Right. And so some of those, the first one that just came to my mind, and I talk about it in my class all the time, is the idea that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it with one of our colleagues, Stephanie Decker.
Right. Dr.
Stephanie Decker.
Yes.
And I told her, I said, I think that one still holds true for me. Like I don't know if somebody was to say something horrible and mean, I mean, yeah, I might take offense in the beginning, but then I really would be like, okay, so how is that really hurting me? Is it really hurting me? But now it can.
Right.
That's what we've seen, is that people do have an effect from it. I tell my kids all the time, I kind of keep that one, people may say bad things about you, but you need to believe in yourself enough and have that self-esteem that that's not how you're living your life. You're not going to take it to heart, and it's not going to be the thing that either makes you have a good day or a bad day.
Right.
I always tell them that you're in charge of your day. You're in charge of your emotion. You're in charge of the way you feel.
Yeah, and we did that. I think we talked about that on the last.
I'm sure we did.
With, that was kind of, by the way, reminded me of an old one that I don't think we ever published it. It was with Alan, Dr. Alan Key, or Alan Key, PhD.
Yeah.
Right. And doesn't have to comma in there, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen it both ways.
It does.
Maybe the comma should be. Anyway, I guess we were in. That was probably 4 or 5 years ago. We did one though where he did REBT, and I remember that was I think that's kind of similar to what that was about. I think was right.
It is. It's just coming to the reality of what you need to think about and how much you're in control of your things.
Sure.
And so, that's one of those things that I always bring up is the truth is, if you only give words, their power.
Right.
Now, some words do just have power. I don't know if we've talked about it, but we kind of have, right? The idea of the president.
Right.
Right. If you have just that word, the president, holds power, but when people say things about you, you get to decide. But that's not the way a lot of people see it anymore.
Well, some of that maybe has to do with. How much of that has to do with our age, too? Because I struggle to think about whenever I was 16, 17 years old, really caring about that kind of stuff. And that's really the time when a lot of people care about it. But I think people maybe care even more as they get older because, there's more to it than just that. Although I know that the common wisdom would be that you care about it less. And people say that one of the benefits of getting older is that you care less about what other people think. And I think there's obviously probably, but the reasons that you care about it change.
Sure.
You don't want to be cool, but you want to be reputable.
Sure. And that's the idea, is right? And it's the slander of your reputation now.
Right.
It is a defamation of character.
Certainly.
That's what we're worried about now, instead of just being the cool kid or whatever.
Yeah, because there's also the additional component of having children, and being in a household of people who are commonly dependent on the same last name.
Yes.
You're in it more than just one party, and so there's more interests involved. You could argue that that's the reason. In some ways, you treat it in some ways like it's an organization or a state, or a business. And people would argue that a household is a business. You got to treat it like a business.
You do.
That's all the hype right now.
It is. So my thing is do you still believe in the whole sticks and stones may break your bones, but words won't hurt you?
I've thought about this since we started. In very primitive fashion.
Yeah.
I think words still hurt, but the reasons are different.
Sure. I'm just, again, maybe when I was younger, they did, but I also think I was a little oblivious.
Right.
To almost what everything else was going on. So I think just because this has been instilled in me since I was a little kid, that if you said something bad about me, you're not my friend.
Right.
And if you're not my friend, then I don't really care what you have to say.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if a good friend of mine, somebody who I did trust, somebody who I did have that, intimate relationship with, all of a sudden said something, then I think it would hurt.
It would hurt.
And, I think we talked about this, and maybe we haven't, but they've actually registered that kind of pain, like being stabbed in the back by a friend, as actual pain.
Really?
Yes. So you actually see release of pain, nerve endings when you get stabbed in the back by a friend, when you are hurt in that way. So it actually seems to register the same kind of pain.
Unbelievable.
So
how do they measure it? And what is that? What is the benefit of being able to measure it?
That's a great question, what the benefit is. But they just did because they were looking at the emotional stress. Like, is it really, people say, I feel pain. I really hurt. You could feel it in your heart. And the truth is you can. There's actually a physiological reaction in your body, the same as if something else happened like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like heart attack, anxiety, those kinds of things, you actually have physiological reactions.
Symptoms.
But also when you learn news, when you are disappointed or you're in that anxiety, you have the same kind of reactions, the visceral reactions. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So I guess in that sense. It makes
sense too.
Right, in that sense, then words can hurt you because you do have a physical, visceral response to damaging words to yourself.
I feel like there's a lot of other dimensions to it as well.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in a democracy or in a democratic republic, or the democracy that helps provide for our republic, we have or should have a obligation to the truth, right? That's maybe a really good way of putting it.
Sure.
That's part of the weakness of this whole thing of relative truth, is that in a democracy, you can get run over in a democracy if you believe in relative truth. Not that there aren't relative truths. There absolutely are relative truths, but then there is truth as well. And when you're not seeking truth, it can really hurt the people because it becomes harder to recognize the truth. It's kind of like the conscience.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the elected officials are supposed to represent and be representative and mirror the values of the society they're representing, then so the society has a harder time recognizing truth, at what point and that line seems to be being blurred deliberately, which is even more problematic.
Absolutely.
And not by any single party, but by interested parties.
Absolutely.
Who are benefiting economically and professionally from the lies. And of course it sounds like a passive, almost like we're talking about passively talking about a group of people, but I'm really not. No. I think that's probably partially.
I think just everybody, you're right. I think that, when we don't actually tell the truth, we just do, we say what we want to make somebody look a certain way or do, that is very damaging. And it can be, not only to the person, but also to the people that you're influencing.
Sure.
Or like we've talked about, like the media or anything. I mean, it's not one side or the other. It's everybody. It's everything that we're doing. And it's not just us. It's other countries and other people who do have that idea of propaganda that leads their people to, but they don't know the whole truth.
Right.
Okay, but I think the whole truth can also be damaging.
Certainly.
Right? So, yeah. I mean, if you think about, like, now people do have more anxiety, especially about their kids and different things. And we would probably, I guess people would estimate that we have more human trafficking, more abuse, more whatever. And the truth is, do we? We don't know, because we're just now getting all the information. Right? Before, when we didn't have the internet or we didn't have something, we didn't have like the international news or anything. We just had our local newspaper information. Then we would not know about the kid in Florida who was kidnapped. The only people we would know about would maybe be somewhere in Texas, but not necessarily somebody in Corpus, because it's far.
Right.
So we don't necessarily get that news. We just get what's relevant to us. So, it's good to know what's going around everywhere, but because we do, it does cause more anxiety, because I'm terrified my kids are always going to get kidnapped because they're amazing and wonderful. But, that's another one. So is the truth, that's another adage, right? That we always say the truth is truth, it's always the best to tell. Honesty is the best way. And
the best antiseptic is sunshine.
And it's like,
is what is it Benjamin Franklin?
Probably.
You probably even got the word wrong. Antiseptic. Is it antiseptic?
I don't know.
Disinfectant.
Okay.
That's what it is.
But that's the idea.
Antiseptic
it's like
is something like that. We invented way later, I think.
Yeah. But that's the idea. Is like is the truth, like that's another saying that we've had is truth is always the best. And it's like, well, sometimes maybe it isn't always the best, right? Because sometimes it's better to keep just a little bit of information. And I mean, I don't know if you tell your kids everything, especially because they're very young.
Sure.
So some of the things they don't need to worry about.
Right.
They don't need to know. They don't need to worry about it. They don't need to be in that situation. So you don't tell them everything.
Right.
And it's not like you're 100% lying, but, right. And I mean, just some special holidays that are coming up.
Right. You certainly don't want to expose them to anything that would, inappropriately make them grow in a way you didn't expect them to.
Absolutely.
Or not want them to, or think is healthy for them to grow. And I mean, I guess one way of thinking about that as an analogy would be like like a hurricane. I think in the past you and I have either private or publicly talked about this a little bit. That in a hurricane, if a hurricane hits Florida, and your explanation a second ago was like crime trends or something like that. If a hurricane hits Florida and devastates multiple communities, like how much does that need to impact my life in Amarillo, and how much of that is really healthy? Of course, we share common values, and to the extent that we care about the truth, we care about helping people, and we care about being, living with virtue and honor and dignity, and providing them and making sure that we're taking care of them as our fellow countrymen and friends,
just humans,
family members. Yeah. But at the same time, if I allow that to have too big of an impact, and asymmetrically impacts me negatively here in Amarillo, and we're not able to help them in the long run.
Sure.
Because we're out feeling everybody's pain all the time, instead of feeling like we're part of this community.
Right.
And I mean, I know that also though that there's probably some community, like that's good for communities to come together and to work to help those, because I mean, we're all going to need help at some point or another.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it's a tough one. I think that it kind of informs what you're talking about with regard to that the healthy growth with kiddos is that there's do you know more about the hurricane probably, or you've been through more news cycles where hurricanes happen. You're not going to stop them, but you also know you can't explain why people are suffering without it seeming just caustic.
Right.
And really seem absurd, like an absurd type of suffering. And so, I mean, until they're maybe old enough to be able to fully register that, if you can argue that there is such a thing as fully registering it, like a Job type of trial, then I mean that's probably why some of our sacred texts also dig into that issue. It's been a problem since the beginning.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how to talk about it is really challenging. And so, I mean, you can absolutely throw people into the deep end of the pool and not give them the tools they need to be able to survive.
Right.
That's all.
Well, that brings up another one that we say all the time.
What is it? Good
things happen to good people.
They do. They do happen to good people.
If that's true, then the reverse should happen, right? So bad things happen to bad people. Right. Okay, but that's not true.
I don't know. I think bad things happen to both types of people.
Absolutely. It's not true. I wish that would be great. I know a bunch of fabulous people who are amazing, that do things all the time for other people, and it's not always just about them, that horrible things happen to them. Like awful things have happened, and they've actually grown from it, and they are still great people. So like that one's not true at all, but do we still say it? all the time, right? Sure. Good things happen to good people. We have the idea of karma, right?
Right.
Again, that if you do the right thing, good things are going to happen to you. And it's like,
karma works as long as the people around kind of holding up the system of karma are the same people that are, or not the same people, I should say, that are professionally and again, benefiting from that, the bad karma or their good
sure.
karma or whatever. I mean, it only works in so far as that's the case if you're just thinking about people, but I mean, really outside factors and natural forces,
right?
Like hurricanes, like
hurricanes, disease.
There's no protection.
Right. I mean, there's cancer.
Right.
Like my biggest thing is like when I see a little baby kid, just a baby has some cancer. And I'm like, that's not true. Like how's this possible? This little innocent, amazing kid has cancer. What did they do wrong?
Right.
And then somebody may say, well, something their parents did. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Like how far do we go on that?
And it just innocent suffering for seemingly no wrongdoing.
And I think that's the most difficult to, I guess, process in our heads. And I think that's why we do try to process. We try to categorize. We try to make sense of stuff. Like, why am I doing good stuff? Because good things are going to happen.
Right.
Right. We have to have a reason. We have to have.
What is that called? The prosperity gospel.
Yeah.
Is what,
that's what you're trying to come up with.
The reason exactly.
Yeah.
The reason you do good is so that you can have nice things, and that you can be, materially blessed, or you can have, celebrate success, and that success follows naturally after being a good
person.
But I mean, what is that? What is the phrase? We should spend less time doing good and a lower time being good.
Yeah.
And that's a I can't remember where that came from. It's like one of these old adages.
Yeah.
And some of those are idioms, I think, too.
Yeah, they are.
I love idioms.
They are.
There's such a high level of, it's so hard to explain. Have you ever tried to explain to somebody like that is from another culture or another country, and they're trying to learn English, and they're trying to understand why a word holds water?
Yeah.
Or something like you're talking about.
Exactly. Like, how does this hold water? And you're like, what?
I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah. I don't know. That's not really what we meant, but that's, yes.
Have you ever seen the George Washington SNL skit where, and they're fairly recent, where George Washington is up there talking about how now that we're a brand new country, or that we're going to be a new country, and there's all these Revolutionary War soldiers on this boat crossing the Delaware or the Hudson or wherever that is. Uh-huh. And he's sitting there talking about all this promise and hope and everything, and and he's talking about how we're gonna have all these specific words to talk about things in a very specific way, except for this other list of things which are going to have absolutely no reason to be named random things.
Yeah.
like using kilograms only for this one specific thing, or pounds on this one, but not having dollars. You're going to have the American dollar, but not the pounds. And it's a fascinating thing, and it's absolutely hilarious. Yes.
Yeah, it's like all over. I haven't seen it. I'll have to look it up.
It's really a parody, I think, because I think the last time we were visiting maybe 2 times ago. This is the problem. We start getting these runs.
Right.
By the way, this is episode 31.
Oh my gosh.
Can you believe it? Yeah. So I think they're trying to do a parody of course, it's parody. It says SNL. But the reason that they're doing it is parody because they have the American Revolution. I think they're just trying to talk about slavery and like the original sin of the original sin in America. The people talk about the multiple personalities, if you will, of America, and how can you have freedom and liberty and dignity and all these things, being etched into law and carved out in the law to protect people in a society where people were still enslaved. And then you have like the whole, anyway, whether it's just SNL, just trying to make light and make people laugh about things that they probably know there's a little bit of truth to.
There's always a little bit of truth,
and it's funny. So
yes, it is.
It is. Yeah, people should check it out for sure.
That's a good one. Okay, I have even more. So I made a list.
Okay.
Just so you know, one of them that came up, like I really looked at again AI. It's like my best friend.
Hey, there you go.
Is the idea, right? Work hard. Good things come to those who work hard, which is really interesting because I used AI right? But that's not the way it is anymore,
Right.
right? Now it is work harder, work smarter, not harder.
Right.
Right. And that was the whole thing, is like, you work hard and good things will happen.
Right.
So people would work their butts off and do all these things, and then they get promoted but now people are, that's not the way it is. Right. Instead, it's not about, you can make money and work smarter, not harder. So, and that has changed.
Right. Work hard, smart hard. Yeah.
That would be good. But that's the idea. It's like we have this idea that you don't have to work hard. Why are you working so hard? Why are you doing, and it's like, and it seems so backwards to me, because again, this is another thing that my parents have totally instilled into me, is this idea that you work hard.
Right.
And the harder you work, the better it'll be, and not necessarily anymore.
I see. I think that it's really important to work hard.
I think so too. I think it's huge. Okay, but let me give you the example that I watched. Okay. So there was this guy who my brother-in-law was talking about, and he he's been working hard, and he's a doctor, and he is in his, I would say, 50s or so, and he's been trying to get into these certain condominiums that cost so much money for like 4 years. Okay, and his next door neighbor is a 25-year-old gamer who sits around in his condo that cost who knows how much, playing games all day long. Okay, what? Okay, I watched this thing with my kids because they were talking about how this guy makes so much money because of YouTube, or I don't even know what he does. And he plays games and talks about it. And he's not, and everybody's like, oh, and my husband was like, well, he must be really good. And I'm like, he's not. He's not good. He plays these weird games. Like, I'm sorry if I don't mean to judge, but it's not like he plays a game like where you can win. I don't even know that you win, but you get on.
So it's not like the old Street Fighter games where you brawl it out or whatever. And then
right. No, it is. So he plays these games where it's like this last one I was watching with him, and I was just floored that they were watching and laughing. But he goes to a grocery store, and he's supposedly working, but he doesn't get to talk. It just talks everything for him. There's customers who come in, they buy stuff, and then they leave, and they say random stuff like, oh, it's your first night? And he didn't even he responds, but the computer thing does it already.
Right.
But then he goes into the stock room and replaces, like, well, I'm replacing the soap dish, or the dish soap. Sorry, I did it backwards. The dish soap. And I was like, This is it? And I was like, and then he would cough and be like, oh, I'm sick. So I'm like, I could do this. I could do this.
Sure.
I think I would be hilarious. Well, my kids don't think I'm funny, but I think I would be hilarious.
I think you're funny.
Thank you. But I was just shocked.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so I looked it up, and this guy makes millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Randomly getting on things, responding to people who are chatting to him while he's doing it. And it's not like he responds like a full sentence even. He'll be like, oh, so-and-so, what's up? And that's his response. And he gets followers all over the place.
I don't disagree. I'm an old guitar player.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like there's, as a old musician, like the whole trying to make it in music, you see a lot of different people that move through the ranks really fast, and there's not always a good explanation for it. And sometimes it seems like it's just dumb luck because it is. And sometimes it seems like it's really unwarranted because it is. And sometimes it seems like it's really unfair because it really is.
It is.
And some of the very best bands are the ones that have been practicing and playing for 30 and 40 years and never gotten any recognition beyond their one or two nightclubs that they played or whatever. But that's not necessarily, that's only, I guess, if you're in it specifically to move through the ranks really fast and to, have
be famous.
Right. And if that's the reason, then, there's a lot of other things to do that I guess you could do a YouTube thing. But at the same time, again, that's not just so easy. Although it looks really like easy, but there's like a whole
I know
formula that people
obviously
use, yeah, for sure.
Like you work on this.
Yeah, but I'm not.
But you do. You work harder than I do. Like I tell people all the time, I just show up, and Aaron has to do all this stuff. But I mean, I know that it's not just easy as sitting there.
Right.
But it is kind of.
It is. It's definitely not. It beats breaking bricks.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So, even it beats being a brain surgeon. Like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, you could screw up and something happens. Now, as a gamer, as a YouTube person, I mean, you can't. I guess there is a possibility that you influence somebody, but in the big scheme of things, like you daily doing something.
Right.
All it is to entertain people.
Certainly.
And that's great.
Yeah.
Because we need entertainment, but really.
Especially once the availability is widespread, like what do they call it? The democratizing effect of the cell phone. Like information, good and bad, is being shared nonstop. That's a perfect example of the type of ecosystem that leads to, people believing any and everything that they're
remember we had Lackey. He came on and he does. He did the face stuff on the phone where you can change.
Oh yeah. The Snapster piece.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw him like a couple of months ago.
That's crazy. Well, I know, like that thing. I know it takes time, but as soon as you can do it, it's like just getting people to download it or what. And I'm like. I wish I could do that.
Right.
Because it doesn't, I know.
You could do that. You could absolutely do that if you wanted. And
but I would have to learn something. But again, it's these kids who already know how to do it. Is that hard work? And he even told us it's not hard work. It's fun. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But it'd be hard to make a career out of.
Absolutely. But is it possible?
It's probably possible.
It is. And that's crazy to me.
But it's also kind of like on the front end of the changing market, like it's requires almost like the type of energy and openness that you have whenever you're young. So it's perfect for somebody to like be successful for a year or two
and just jump in it
at the exact time in their life, that window of their life when they're in between, the end of one phase and the beginning of another or something like that. But really, the types of skills, and this seems like the kind of like the environment today. Like nowadays, people are making multiple careers at the same time, having quote unquote side hustles, as they say, and being able to be ever adaptive and more agile, I guess, and all the buzzwords, I guess, for the innovative economy.
I just remember what it's called. Filters. Yes, that's what it is.
That's right.
Different filters.
Yes,
it popped in my head at the time.
No, that is Sean Lakey.
Sean
Lakey.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was like, I know. I actually follow him now on my Snapchat.
Excellent.
I believe it is.
Okay.
But how often? Or I don't know. Is it Instagram? I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, it's Snapchat, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I really don't.
He's a good guy, and
he is a good kid.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. He's still doing stuff, and he told me the stuff that he was doing, like updated me a little bit on what he was up to now. And it's just as amazing. It's just newer stuff,
right?
And so he's
on the
good
cutting
example.
edge constantly.
He's an example of the type of person that can do that and be fluidly readapting and adapting and readapting, and just amazing. But it's natural to him.
Yeah,
it comes naturally. So
again, he's working smarter, not harder.
Right. Right. You could say that's good parenting, or
it could be, it just happened to be during the time in his life that it was the norm.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting.
Because maybe that again in the future that won't be as beneficial because so many people are building careers off of it. They'll need the folks that are just the conformers, if you will, to just fill the space.
Exactly, to do the stuff that these innovators constantly are doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the accountability, I guess.
Okay, I got one that I thought was interesting because it can bring up a lot of different ideas.
Okay.
And that's the idea that blood is thicker than water.
Ooh.
which it is.
Yeah.
Technically, like literally, it is. However, of course, the saying, in case anybody doesn't know, which I think most people do, blood is thicker than water, is that you would do anything for the family, but a friend, it's not the same. And it's kind of like you're not blood, you're not kin, you're not related. And is that always true?
No, not always. No.
I would say no, too. We see a lot of people who choose their family now.
Yeah.
Right? You get to choose who you're around. And for whatever reason, maybe there was maybe just location, right? Maybe just location. For some reason, you and your, maybe not even significant other, maybe you just by yourself took off to a different country and you don't have your family there. So you make family. So now you have your family group that they're just friends, they're not blood, but we do identify them as family. And now they have become part of that family. So
like the University of Virginia and Thomas Jefferson.
Right. Exactly. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I also see that, I've seen it with people who, through adoption, people always thought for the longest time that you can only be attached, have that attachment, that bonding with your biological parents. And we have now realized that that's not true. We've actually seen some really great bonding and attachment, great secure attachment with adoptive parents, foster parents, things that we always thought, no, it's not going to be the same as a biological parent because blood is thicker than water. But we've seen that that's not necessarily true. That we've seen that, the commitment and trusting and communication, all of those things that we know that, foster a secure relationship actually doesn't have to be your blood. So sometimes it does happen with people who are considered the water in this analogy.
Sure.
Or whatever it is, adage or idiom or, the saying. We'll just say that with the saying.
No, I think, I agree. It's hard to recognize that though.
Yeah.
And it's hard to accept that, specifically if it's happening to a family member and you're trying to protect that person.
Sure.
So, I can imagine that, that if someone was, if the foster system is a good example. I think our very first episode, actually, we talked about Emerald Angels.
We did.
The foster system, the foster care system, is special. It's got a special place in our society. It's really challenging.
Yeah.
And people really want, I think people should support and want to support foster care system because it's so hard. It's very misunderstood as
Absolutely.
well, which leads to all kinds of
stigmas.
I guess that's true with certainly in government, like our our students, people sometimes have an understanding of government that's not bad, it's not wrong. It's like a very surface level kind of and not really maybe doesn't explain some of the deeper issues in government that may be more attached to human. Anyway, the foster system, it comes to mind specifically because maybe it's hard to accept that sometimes somebody can be I don't know how to say this. I don't know, and I also don't know. I don't know how to put this into words. That's a problem.
It is. We hear. Whenever we hear about the foster system, we don't hear about the good stuff, right?
Right.
We hear about all the bad things that can happen, and so that's why a lot of times people have that horrible stigma on the foster system, and so I think that just a culture also has that idea. If you were brought up in a culture that blood is thicker than water, then it's going to be hard for you to really foster or adopt, to have that feeling like, oh, I will never love that kid the way that I love a natural born kid kind of thing.
Right.
And we've seen that that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
No,
That's
I
another
agree.
one.
But you know what? Raising kids is not easy either.
No, it's not.
Even when they're natural born kids, good Lord, it is hard.
It's so true. Parenting is difficult.
I know. In general. So
It is.
people, maybe the misunderstanding might be, why would anybody do this if they didn't have to?
Right.
Right? Why would anybody choose to do this if they didn't have to do this? Why would you spend this money if you don't have to? Why would you choose to like put yourself through this stress and all this other stuff if you didn't naturally have like
there's a good
thicker
show.
blood?
Insta Family. Is that what it's called? Maybe, I don't know. But Mark Wahlberg is in it,
Okay.
and it's
It's like a TV show?
No,
Okay.
it's a movie,
Okay.
and it does a pretty good. I mean, of course, everything is always like yay, rainbows and butterflies in the end, but it does bring up some of the issues that a lot of foster parents may encounter.
Sure.
And I think there's one part where it's pretty, they do it in a joking way, but they're both like, what are we doing? Like, why did we do this? This is horrible. And then they both like lay down and they're like, yeah, we're not getting rid of them. Like they're staying here. Like,
That's so funny.
And I mean, it's almost like they did have a choice. They have that period where they get to choose, and it's just so much work and so many things. And oh my God. And then, but they're both like, yeah, there's too much. We've grown too much. We've had too much. There's too many things. We're not getting rid of them. It's funny, like in that.
Yeah, that is funny. Years ago, Father. Do you remember the movie Father Stu? Mark Wahlberg.
I love Mark
Yeah, I got to
Wahlberg.
talk about Father Stu for a second. I mean,
It's a good show.
We liked it.
Yeah.
We really liked it. It was really, really good.
It was.
And what is the other one? The fighter. I guess that was a good one too.
Oh, it is. I love Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. He's really
a good
good.
one.
Did you ever see the I Heart Huckabees?
Yeah. Is he in that one?
He is. He's the firefighter that's going around
Really?
telling people to ask more questions. Remember, he's going through an existential crisis, and he's always like telling his kids, he's like,
didn't.
never stop asking questions. And,
I didn't even notice. Now I'm going to have to go because
Yes.
Basketball Diaries. Have you ever seen that one?
Is he in that?
He is.
No way.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the Leonardo DiCaprio one,
Yes,
right?
he is. He's in that one. It's a good one.
Okay. What does he play in that? Is he
He's one of the friends.
Okay. Wow,
Yeah.
I've not seen that.
He's one of the friends. He
Since the 90s.
played basketball with him. He was one of the friends. So there was, I don't know, 4 of them? Yeah, there was 4 of them. And one of them kind of was like, and he stopped doing it. But then the other 3 kind of just, and he's one of those.
Okay.
It's really good.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not seen that in a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And I think even then I may have seen it like half watching, paying attention, really not
Right. It's a
fully
good
engaged.
one.
But I may have been like right at that age where you just wasn't old enough to
Understand. Yeah, it's
to
good.
register yet.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another one.
Okay.
This is an interesting one because now we even have a whole thing on. We have a name for people who this would be, right? And this is the customer is always right.
Ah, yes.
Customer is always right.
What could go wrong? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we have now, right? If somebody is a customer that wants everything to go right and they're the right person, what do we call them now?
If they're
It's a woman, and I need to see your manager.
oh, like a helicopter.
We already Karen. It's the Karen.
A Karen.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's the
Gotcha.
Karen.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no, it's fine. But that's the idea. Is like
Helicopter Karen though, not a helicopter Karen.
that's what we had our helicopter parents, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's the idea. Is like it really was. The customer's always right.
Yeah.
And you come in, you do your thing, and if something's wrong, the customer's right, so you fix it because we are all about customer service.
Right.
Okay, but that's not how it is now.
Right.
And then I don't know that the customer is always right? Because people could definitely take advantage in that situation as the customer being always right.
Sure.
Because as soon as they find that out, people can. You could definitely take advantage. But now we don't feel that way.
Yeah, Walmart, Best Buy, their policies have totally changed around those things. They don't they don't hand stuff out. Like whenever when a customer comes in and says that this isn't working or this was not this doesn't have everything in the box. Well, if that box comes back, it's not sealed. I mean, there's huge things that I've not been able to take back because I mean, I'm not wrong.
But how would you know? How would you know if it wasn't in there if you didn't open it?
I mean, you can open it, but I mean, but The key is to be able to explain why it's not in there if it was sealed when you left the store.
Right.
That's not immediately, I mean, there's no evidence for that.
No.
Except for the customer is always right.
Right.
And so if you go in with that predisposition, yeah, your expectations can totally lead to being just angry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's like, wait, but that was how it was. The customer is, and that's kind of how you were taught when you were young.
yeah,
If you're going to work, the customer's always right. You do what they need you to do. But now that's not what we see anymore. The customer's not always right.
right.
And theoretically, statistically, the customer's not always right.
Yeah.
Right? There are some things that you're like, wait, that customer, that was jerky. But, it has changed 100%. I don't know that places even say that anymore. The customer's always right. Do they?
No, it's kind of an invitation for fraud.
Right. And that's what? Why did that happen?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't the way it was before.
Yeah, I think it was.
And maybe it was.
Probably exactly.
And maybe it was.
Maybe it was an insurance thing.
Maybe.
I don't know. We talked about that a lot in the AI thing. It was like everything was an insurance thing. And by the way, I mean, that whole conversation has died down pretty significantly.
Has it?
Yeah. I certainly don't hear about it, although it was in the Oscars, I guess. But which I didn't watch, by the way.
I didn't either.
Did you watch it? Okay.
No, I didn't.
Did you used to watch it more?
Probably.
See?
I think I watched all of the...
So do you think that that's a good example or a good mirror of the customer always being right? I mean, maybe it was our age. Maybe it was the fact that we just feel like they're not talking to us anymore.
Maybe.
And so as people that used to subscribe, I guess, I used to enjoy getting to watch, the personalities kind of talk to each other and what they're going to show up and do. What weird thing are they going to end up doing when they win?
Yeah.
Or what are they going to say when they win? How crazy is it going to be, when this person doesn't even wear any clothes?
Right.
Stuff like that. And I mean, it's just bizarre now. I mean, I don't have any stock in it.
I don't either. There's skin in the game. That's another thing.
Skin in the game. That's right. That's my favorite phrase.
Yeah.
Right.
No skin in the game.
Yeah. No skin in the game.
But that's, And I think I did see something on it where Adam Sandler. Did you? I don't know.
Did he win?
No.
Of course not. He would have been too just.
Yeah. He wore, I think Colin, what is it? Not Colin. Conan O'Brien. I don't know why.
Yeah.
He was in charge of it, right? And they were joking about how some people are completely inappropriate all the time. And so I'm sure it was a skit. It was obviously set up. But he talks about Adam Sandler. He's like, what are you wearing? And he has on what he always wears, like the hoodie, basketball shorts. And I mean, it was a little bit like extra.
Yeah.
You knew. And he did stand up and was like, why are you calling me out in front of all my friends? And then right before he left, he kissed Charlemagne. And of course, he said it the way he does his little voice, like, Charlemagne, like that.
Yeah.
And it was, obviously a skit, but, it was just.
Yeah. Do you remember, I mean, what was it, a couple of years ago that the guy, the former wrestler who was in several of the not the bad and the ugly, but movies. What is the name of that movie? Or the series, like Fast and the Furious.
Oh, Fast and Furious, yes.
The bad and the ugly. That's funny.
The Rock?
The good, the bad, and the
Are you
ugly.
talking
No,
about?
it wasn't The Rock. It wasn't Dwayne Johnson, but rather there's whatever the main Dom, his characters in the movie.
Vin Diesel?
Vin Diesel's brother, his younger brother in number 8 and 9, I think, which just sounds really dorky.
I know, isn't that
nerdy,
crazy?
Saying, right? I can't remember the guy's name.
My husband would know.
He didn't wear any clothes to the Oscars a couple of years ago.
Really?
I mean, he came, I guess, in his birthday gear or whatever, and I think he only had on like a leotard or something really skimpy, just keeping himself from being exposed, and the color of skin. So it was like, it wasn't necessarily immediately obvious to some people
that he had something on.
That he even had anything on. And so, I mean, it was just kind of one of those things. It seems like a stunt,
Absolutely.
Of course it is.
Sure.
But
look at me.
yeah, but I mean, that seems the whole thing is like that.
Which brings up another one. Okay, which I've just been seeing and doing, is the idea that good things come to those who wait. Okay, I think that was a whole slogan campaign for ketchup. Remember
Okay.
the Heinz ketchup? You just wait, good thing, and the ketchup, when it finally comes out.
Shakes and shakes the ketchup bottle, none will come out, and then a lot'll.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the idea. So, and I think that was their like campaign. Good things come to those who wait. And we actually heard that. People would say that, but that's not the way it is anymore. Right? If we passively sit by and wait, then we actually can get passed by.
Certainly.
I've seen it. Right? And now we see it with the whole idea of what will we see with recruiting for our high school athletes, right? If you just sit around and do your job, work hard, do what you do, don't be, in everybody's face, don't have to do this. Well, you get passed by. Right now, it's the idea that you have to go out there and get it. You have to go out and actively talk to coaches. You have to actively post stuff on your social media. You have to actively say, hey, look at me, in order for people to look at you, right?
Sure.
So just good things come to those who wait thing is not the way it is anymore. Right now we talk about you have to go out and get it.
Right.
You got to get up and go, and you have to get out in there and, get yours. Go get yours. That's what I hear. Go get yours.
Right.
And it's like, and my kids have a hard time because we always tell them, you work hard, things will happen, and, people will see it. They don't like showy people. And well, I'm wrong. People do like showy people because, if you're constantly showing people what you're doing, then they know instead of having to come and watch.
Right.
Which seems like a whole nother thing, right? We're going to work smarter, not harder when it comes to recruiting, right? If I can see everything that you've done on your social media, your hits, the way you footwork, that, whatever this happens, who's commenting, then I don't have to come and see you. I don't have to make the call. I don't have to look at the emails. I don't have to. But if you don't actively go get it,
Yeah.
then you're going to get passed by.
It's a public relations thing.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, having a social media page is almost like
You have to.
You should have to have one in some ways. There's just a passive. We'll talk about passive tracking. Good.
Absolutely.
Grief. But that's a serious one. That's a good one.
It is,
That's a really
but
good
it's
one.
like
Yeah.
we did good things come to those. It's not anymore.
But people aren't noticing. People certainly aren't watching. They're not looking for virtuous stuff.
No.
They're looking for real, superficial stuff.
Absolutely. That's what we were at a baseball camp, and I won't name the university, but there was a very loud, showy kid. Like, hey, did it, constantly, like if he did any play, he was like yelling, look at me, and what happened? The coaches noticed. They noticed him. Now, was he good? Yeah, he was good. But was he great? Was he better than everybody else on the field? And the answer is no. But did he act like it? Was he showy? Did he get people to watch him? And the answer is yes. Yes, he did. He went out there and got it. He got your attention. Okay. Now, my son is the opposite. He can do something that everybody's like, what? Or he'll make something that everybody's struggling, make it look easy, but he doesn't post anything. He doesn't do it because he's like, Mom, that's not me. I'm not going to take a picture of myself and say, look what I did. And and it's so hard. And it's like, so because it's not, there's other reasons too, why he's, not in the eye of everybody, but it is, it's difficult because then I'm like, I'll do it for you. But then he just like, oh, I don't want you to do it. It makes me look. And I'm like, but it's almost like you have to now. So good things don't necessarily come to those who wait. Right now, what we see is good things come to those who go get it. You got to go. You have to be aggressive. You have to sell yourself. You have to do the things. You can't just wait around.
You know what I think of immediately when I don't know why this immediately comes to mind is the financial crisis in 2008.
Okay.
It seems like something that should be
not
way like
necessarily.
a road apple, Newman. Like speaking of which, the recent stuff that went on in the Oval Office, we won't comment too much on it or anything.
We're going to talk about it. I think it's a good.
Because it always gets flagged as political content on YouTube.
Oh, it does? Okay.
There's other reasons as well.
We
but
won't.
No, but, and I can cut it or whatever, but it's really not any big deal. Do you remember that Seinfeld episode where they're playing Risk? And and Newman says something like, "I'm not beat yet. I still have armies in the Ukraine."
Yeah.
And Newman and Kramer says, that the Ukraine is weak. He's like, it's a road apple, Newman.
Yeah.
And there's a guy from Ukraine standing right behind him who crushes their board. He turns around and says, "But I smashed your board." Anyway, I don't know why it made me think of it. There's something about the back and forth that was going on there that was very Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Seinfeld-oriented. It was great, but not necessarily great in the sense of being good in the world. It was just...
It was entertaining.
It was satire. I mean, it was good entertainment, which is, hey, that may be exactly the whole point.
Yep.
Talk about creating urgency.
Absolutely.
And doing that in politics is like the most, probably a extremely valuable skill. But anyway, what were we talking about?
You said
the financial crisis.
Financial crisis, yes.
The predatory lending. Yeah, the predatory lending. Going out and finding people to lend money to who had no chance of ever paying it back, and telling them that they could afford to buy it. All they had to do was, clock in at this very, very early low interest rate. And it was a variable rate. And, over time it just continued to go up, and then people couldn't pay it back.
Right.
So in some ways, I guess, going out and get it, I guess, in the sense it's kind of like we were talking about a customer always being right, being an example of an invitation for fraud. But maybe that's
the other way too.
The other way as well, and maybe that's just human nature.
Is it?
Partially.
Well, it is, and that's sad. It's like, it is our human nature to figure out. Well, I always tell people in my class all the time, your body is the most efficient machine. It will find the easiest way to get whatever's done. It's not going to work harder than it has to. It's not going to do stuff. So, it is, your body does it, your mind does it. So we do find, we'll find the easy way. Yeah. Which sucks.
Yeah. Unless the easy way, I guess, is to have to wait on the fixed rate, because it requires good credit. It requires good reputation.
Then what did you just say? We don't get instant gratification.
Right.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But that's where we are.
Right.
We're definitely.
Yeah. And we were talking about commitment, specifically the fostering thing. Is that instant gratification?
No, absolutely not.
There would be someone.
Well, in the beginning.
In the very beginning, there would be an instant.
I have a kid. And look how great I am. Everybody, look what I did.
Look, virtue signal. Yeah, central.
Absolutely.
But then you have to start. You have to actually follow through. On that stuff. If that's not instant gratification at that point. Once you're in the payment stage, it's different.
It is.
So I don't know. That's a tough one.
It is.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's and I think some of the long-term stuff, particularly with the lending, example, the financial crisis, and I don't know why. I think that it has to do with there's so many different parties, and it's such a good illustration of why, like, the folks who are in and benefiting from that system are always going to have a way out.
Yeah.
That's all. It's not necessarily right.
No.
And that's certainly not an endorsement. It's certainly not a good reason for it to continue. But it's also not really something that
waiting.
We're not. Yeah, they're not. They're obviously the types of people who are going to take initiative to get out there and do something.
Yeah.
And change the narrative a little bit. But you remember it went from, oh gosh, this is a crisis for all the homeowners, to, oh gosh, this is a crisis for the United States and for the global financial system.
Yep.
So, it went from bottom all the way to the very top, like really fast in a year, less than a year.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Good.
Anyway.
I know. I was totally going to say something, and it just went out of my mind. So, do you want me? I have another one. What
Absolutely.
Time?
Please do.
Okay. The next one I have is, actually I have two. I'm going to go with this one first. Can't teach old dog new tricks. And that's the idea that you can't teach people because they've already learned and they're stuck in their ways. I don't believe that.
No.
I really don't. I don't even feel like that about an old dog. I feel like an old dog can still learn stuff.
Sure.
And it definitely doesn't hold water again here, because we have, what we would consider, what is labeled as the non-traditional student, right? Somebody who comes back to either change their career, to do something different, to better themselves now that they've been through whatever's gone on in their life. And so we have people who are 50s, 60s, which, they would be considered old dog, new trick, but they can learn. Anybody can be taught new things. Sure. It has to come down to willingness.
Absolutely.
But that is also a 2-year-old.
That's the number one thing, right? I mean, is that when you get at any age, you can get stuck in and not really wanting to move forward. Whatever that means, growing or learning a new skill set or a new trade or whatever the case may be. It's it's all a question as well. And did y'all do, I don't know what like psychology curriculums are like at all, but did y'all ever cover anything, or is Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli, have any impact on any of that stuff?
No.
Okay. I mean, he should, though. I mean, he's such a interesting person. I mean, and he had such an interesting story.
Absolutely.
And he reopened this discussion with like these old classical Greek authors that are like, he was an absolute, the term Machiavellian, comes from Machiavelli, but I mean, I've never thought that there was a more unrepresentation, a bad representation of somebody's reputation.
Right.
Machiavelli was not seen at the time as being cunning, or he was cunning. Yeah. And he was really good at what he did. He was all of those things. But he didn't necessarily want to do it.
Right.
And that's fascinating. Like I think he wanted to be like a smith.
Yeah.
If he could have, he had like 5 kids, he had a family. That was what he was good at.
Right.
He was really good at palace intrigue type stuff. Uh-huh. And I mean, he just happened to be good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that it was a skill that he also developed, and maybe was quiet about that. He got tortured. He was an interesting person, somebody who was tortured by his enemies, who he never, but the thing is, and this says more about him than anything, that he, allegedly never broke under the torture. So, I mean, that's an important little side fact, I think.
Absolutely.
Because he obviously had integrity,
yeah.
which is not what you think of when you think of somebody who's Machiavellian.
No.
So if somebody has a ton of character and is able to withstand, somebody breaking their bones, you would say that was a person that could be trusted. That was in the national security context, that would be a reliable person, right? But that's not how we remember him. No. So anyway, one of the things that he said was that if you want somebody to do something, make it to where they have to do something, not by mandating it, like a mandate, like a business mandate, or like, okay, everybody's going to start wearing khakis to work on Thursday. Not like that, but I mean, you're going to start to force them in a position like where it's like naturally they have to choose whether they live or die,
right?
And that way, that they're choosing, and make it clear that they're choosing to stay alive by doing to making the change. And the skill, as terrible as that is, he was just remarking on human nature, and I don't think he necessarily advocated for doing that. I think he was just saying
that's just how people work.
That he was like, that's just
we do this.
It's an observable fact,
right? If we don't ever want to do anything, we have to. We want to do stuff that we want to,
right? And
that's what we see. So I mean, it's like as soon as somebody wants to do it, you can teach them anything, right? And so I think the whole you can't teach old dog new tricks is wrong.
How about this one? Kind of following in line, that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Yes, I read that in a fortune cookie.
I kind of like that though.
Yeah,
and it kind of goes with that's true.
Yeah,
like as soon as you're ready to learn, all of a sudden your teacher's there. When they've been there, which they could be there the whole time, but you don't notice or you don't find them useful, right? And that's the thing. You don't find the teacher useful until you need them.
Right.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I always bring up in my class, I'm like, how many of you are taking this class because you have to? And I do. I have multiple people who raise their hand. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm hoping to change your mind, that you feel like you have to. I'm hoping that you see that psychology can be used in everything. And now that you want to take this, that you see its relevance in anything that you're doing. Whether, I mean, you're not just a psychology major. I said, but if any of you plan on getting married, being a parent, interacting with anybody at any time, ever asking for something from somebody, then psychology is useful. Trying to figure out your own life, psychology is useful. And so, I mean, again, you have to make it relevant.
Right.
That's the idea. So,
right. Otherwise, it's pie in the sky type stuff.
Yes.
A good
Pie
example,
in the sky is another one.
kind of this is a controversial example, of course, because it's currently unfolding stuff.
Okay.
And I'm not going to comment, obviously, on anything that's going to,
Flag us.
Yeah, flag us or make us, any, I guess, more unpopular than we already are. But like a good example, I guess, the when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and the whole idea of necessity, like bringing about the need for relearning new skills, is kind of going on right now. And the whole, I guess, the debacle in the Oval Office a couple of days ago, between the president of the Ukraine, who is a wartime leader, credited with being a good wartime leader.
Yeah.
And obviously there's always detractors in anybody in power and people who are critical, but probably very good, a good leader in that time. But as administrations have changed, that the goals are being expressed in a way that are asking different outcomes of the same group, right? And I think we know that what that kind of is like as educators, not in the same way that
not
that
war,
the poor
but still
Ukrainians understand it right now, which would be awful. And of course, we absolutely want to help people that are suffering, whoever they are.
Right.
But
so again, it's the idea that the end goals help.
The end goals are what are driving the means.
Yeah.
And then the means is, here's the bottom line. If we are saying we want there to be peace, and we're the ones, in charge of the allowance, if you will, then we're just going to hold back the allowance until people are ready to do what we ask them to do. It's like, I think that's kind of what Machiavelli was saying, and saying, like, if we're not saying that you can't go somewhere else,
right?
But they're going to have to also change in order to facilitate your needs.
Sounds like
in
a
way.
Parent.
It does, right? I mean, that's what you do whenever you're a parent. I guess that's the kind of thing that you do whenever you're responsible for other people. Do you remember the old there's a phrase in the Godfather? The scene where Michael and Kate, this just triggered this in my head.
Yeah.
The Godfather trigger. I'm going to put that up on the. But Michael Corleone is talking to Kate, and Kate is trying to dispel, I guess, that Michael is ever going to do anything bad, basically with his power, and be a lack of accountability or whatever the checks and balances are or whatever. And he said, he's talking about his dad, who is a don in the mafia. And he said, my dad was no different than anybody else who was in power, like a senator. And she said, Michael, didn't you know how naive you sound, or how wrong you sound? Because a senator doesn't have people, well, I can't say that, but I'll have to take this out, or part of it, because a senator doesn't ever do any bad things, right? And Michael said, who's being naive, right? And basically, I think, there's certain level of the Prince or Machiavelli in that comment, because, understandably, sometimes part of being responsible and being in power is not giving people what they want. Yeah. That's the other part of that. Is,
well, we talk about that with the people who do interventions. Right. We talk about people being the crutch, or you're the one who's like the enabler. And that's kind of, if we're constantly enabling certain things to keep going on, then are you now a part of the problem instead of part of the solution? So like in an intervention, if anybody's an addict, or, whatever happens to be the intervention we're coming for, that's what it is. We have people who are, finally have to stand their ground and decide not to do stuff until this behavior's changed, or until you actually show something. And so, and that's what parents do. That's what you have to do, right? If we see a behavior, and hopefully we do know better. And so we can, help people out. And that's kind of like this situation, right? We're going to take things away until you We can't just keep being enablers in the situation. We're going to have to, sit down. We're going to put down the law. We're going to put our foot down and say, okay, listen, this is what we need. This is the outcome we're looking for. So let's sit down and do this. Right. And so I think that's what parents do. Right. I think that's what people in intervention do. I think that's what, it's like it's gotten too far that now we just have to.
I think in one of our new episodes coming back here, we were talking about sociopathy and like the what is it that, because specifically like when is it appropriate for the label, quote unquote, to come out of the bag and to be pushed on the product, if you will. And I mean, it kind of does become a product at that point.
Sure.
Because then everything, whatever it is that you're saying is legitimized. Everything that, is, becomes, my point is like that, that's kind of goes in line with what we're talking about. That the parent has, an obligation to the truth.
Sure. And
to some extent, I don't know. And we gotta, it's a tough one. Yeah. Because there's, admittedly, I'm sure that there's things that even the most powerful people in the world would not want a parent to do.
Sure.
Even at the height of their power, right? And yet, also there's, admittedly, like maybe sometimes a social need, I guess, a need for a scapegoat.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one way they're doing it. It could be something else, of course, like children being in danger, for example, would be obviously an imperative. Somebody's life being threatened would obviously be an imperative, where you have to go in. You don't have an option. It's not really. But I think that may be in a free society, that may be the limit of it, because otherwise it could be doing more harm than helping.
Sure.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think that brings up so many things, right? There's always the extenuating circumstances. Like, are you okay, we're like the idea of discipline, right? If a kid, like we will discipline the kid, but like when does discipline become abuse? When is it no longer effective? When is it this, right? If we're withholding something, instead of actually hitting, we decide to withhold something because they're not doing it. Okay, so when does that withholding something become now dangerous?
Coercion.
Right? And that's just, that is not just on a parenting level. This is on society level. This is a boss level. This is a corporate level. This is, economic level. This is, everything that you look at, right? Like, when does it, go past that point? What is the line? What is the line you draw? And I think it depends.
Right. But people need to know what the lines are.
Sure.
That's the thing that makes coercion so effective is,
we don't know the lines.
Yeah. If you don't know the lines, then people can just dictate whatever the heck they want to and enforce it selectively,
right,
so that they can punish or be punitive to people that they want to be punitive to.
Yeah. And,
and selectively rewarding of maybe the same behavior out of a
somebody
different person,
else.
Somebody who's allowed to benefit from that system, a crony.
Right.
It's just an interesting thing.
It is, for sure.
We have so many. This is a fun format.
It is.
By the way, we should do this format again sometime.
Like, we're just come up with stuff and then randomly talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. It is like, it's not really, there's not a ton of, there's not a lot of randomness. I feel like there's a lot of trending.
Yeah.
A lot of trending topics there.
It is.
They're all like,
seem to link somehow.
Yeah. And they're oddly like not true anymore, but also not false anymore. Right. Either. They're still.
It depends. Everything is relative.
Yes, right. Yeah,
That's what we see.
It's so true. But it is. There's a certain level of obligation, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a tough one.
It is. It always is.
Thank you so much for being back. It's good to have you back.
I'm glad to be back. It's nice. It's fun. That's what it is. It's fun. It gives me just another fun thing to do.
Right. And we've got spring break coming up, so I'll have extra time to edit this, which is good. And by edit, we don't mean like cut scenes necessarily, but moving things, graphics and stuff in is the thing that takes all the time.
He works on it. I just show up.
Takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. Well, y'all have a wonderful day, and talk to you later.
Have a good one.